In medieval England, where duty governs all and hearts must bow to royal decree, Prince William's future was sealed long before he drew breath, a political marriage to secure peace between kingdoms. But fate had other plans when a rainy morning led him to stumble at the feet of Mary Fletcher, a humble flower seller with extraordinary blue tulips and eyes that mirrored the summer sky he longed to see. What begins as a chance encounter becomes a forbidden connection that defies centuries of tradition. As William is torn between the crown he was born to wear and the love he never expected to find, a shocking revelation emerges. Mary is the daughter of the very soldier who gave his life to save the prince years ago. Their worlds, seemingly separate, have been intertwined by destiny all along. But with the royal wedding fast approaching and the kingdom's future hanging in the balance, how much will they risk for a love that was never meant to be? Follow this extraordinary journey where impossible love challenges the boundaries of duty and birth, where blue tulips bloom in the most unlikely places, and where true nobility is revealed not by blood, but by the courage of the heart. Like, subscribe and comment where you're watching from to join us for more emotional tales that remind us how love can rewrite destiny itself. The rain fell in a gentle but persistent drizzle over the bustling marketplace of York, turning the once dusty paths into treacherous ribbons of mud. Merchants huddled beneath hastily constructed canopies, their wares protected from the elements by oilcloth coverings and makeshift wooden shelters. The scent of wet earth mingled with the aromas of freshly baked bread, smoked meats, and the sweet perfume of flowers that somehow managed to retain their fragrance despite the gloomy weather. Among the throng of people navigating the slippery terrain was a tall figure wrapped in a plain woolen cloak, the hood pulled low over his face. Prince William of Lancaster, 40 years of age and heir to the throne, had escaped the suffocating confines of the castle for a few precious hours of anonymity. His shoulders, usually held rigid with royal bearing, were now slightly hunched, as if carrying an invisible burden. The weight of his impending marriage to Lady Eleanor of Northumbria pressed upon him like a physical force. A political union designed to strengthen alliances and prevent war, yet devoid of any true connection or affection. William's father, King Edward, had been insistent. This marriage will secure peace for generations to come. Your personal feelings are irrelevant when weighed against the welfare of the kingdom. William's boots sank into the mud as he moved through the market, his mind as clouded as the sky above. The vendors called out their wares, their voices rising and falling in a familiar cadence that he found oddly comforting. Here, disguised as a common traveler, he could momentarily forget the golden crown that awaited his return. It happened in an instant. A cart laden with barrels rumbled past, splashing muddy water across the path. William stepped back to avoid the spray, his foot catching on an uneven stone. He stumbled, lost his balance, and fell forward, landing on his hands and knees directly in front of a modest flower stall. "Oh, are you all right, sir?" came a concerned voice, melodious and warm despite the chill in the air. William looked up, intending to offer a brief assurance before continuing on his way, but the words died in his throat as his eyes met those of the woman standing before him. They were the most extraordinary shade of blue he had ever seen, clear and bright like the summer sky he so desperately longed to see again. She was not a young maiden, but a woman of mature beauty, her face bearing the gentle lines of 38 years of life and laughter. Her dark hair was pulled back into a simple knot at the nape of her neck, with a few errant strands framing her face. She wore a dress of practical brown wool with a faded blue apron tied around her waist. Nothing about her attire suggested wealth or status, yet there was a quiet dignity in her bearing that commanded respect. "Here, take my hand," she offered, extending fingers that showed the signs of hard work, yet retained an undeniable grace. William accepted her assistance, feeling a peculiar warmth spread through him as their hands connected. Once upright, he brushed the mud from his cloak, suddenly conscious of his appearance in a way that had never troubled him before. "Thank you, mistress," he said, his voice deliberately roughened to disguise its cultured tones. "The rain always makes the footing treacherous." She smiled, and it transformed her face, illuminating her features with a gentle radiance. "The rain always chooses the best mornings to test us, doesn't it?" she replied, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "But without it we wouldn't have these." She gestured to the flowers arranged in simple clay pots and woven baskets at her stall. Most were common blooms, daisies, primroses, and early spring violets. But in the center of the display stood a cluster of flowers that made William catch his breath. Tulips of the most extraordinary blue, their petals unfurled like satin hands reaching toward the sky. "I've never seen such a color," he admitted. Forgetting for a moment to maintain his disguise, the woman's smile deepened. "Blue tulips are rare indeed. Some say they symbolize impossible love." She selected one of the blooms, its stem wrapped in a damp cloth to preserve its freshness. "Here, please take this as a gesture of goodwill, something beautiful to counterbalance your unfortunate fall." William stared at the offered flower, momentarily stunned by the simple kindness. In the castle, every gift came with expectations, every gesture calculated for political advantage. Yet here was this woman giving freely to a stranger she believed to be of modest means. "I couldn't possibly," he began. "Please," she insisted. "It would bring me joy to know it might brighten your day." Their fingers brushed again as he accepted the tulip, and William felt that same inexplicable connection, like a thread being woven between their souls. "I'm Mary," she said simply, requiring no titles or formal introductions. "William," he replied, giving his true name without thought, something he had never done while in disguise. "Well, William," she said, his name sounding different on her lips, more like the name of a man than a prince. "May the rest of your day be less muddy." A little girl, no more than 10 years old, appeared from behind the stall. She had her mother's dark hair but brown eyes instead of blue. "Mother, Mr. Cooper wants to know if you have any more of the lavender bundles ready." "Tell him they'll be ready by tomorrow, Rose," Mary replied, touching her daughter's head affectionately. William watched the interaction with fascination. Here was a world so different from his own, simpler perhaps, but filled with genuine connections that had nothing to do with treaties or bloodlines. "You have a beautiful daughter," he said. A shadow passed over Mary's face so quickly he almost missed it. "She's the light of my life. My husband died 5 years ago. He was a soldier. Now it's just the two of us, making our way as best we can." William felt a pang of sympathy mixed with something deeper he couldn't identify. "I'm sorry for your loss." Mary nodded, accepting his condolence with quiet dignity. "Life continues, and we find our joys where we can. The flowers help. They remind us that beauty can grow even in difficult circumstances." A customer approached the stall, and Mary turned to attend to them. William took the opportunity to step back, suddenly aware that he had been standing there far longer than he had intended. The blue tulip in his hand seemed to pulse with life, its color defying the gray day around them. As he moved away, he caught a final glimpse of Mary, her head bent attentively toward an elderly woman examining a bunch of primroses. There was something about her presence, her quiet strength, that drew him like a lodestone pulls metal. William made his way back through the market, the blue tulip clutched carefully in his hand. The scent of it, subtle, slightly spicy, unlike any flower he had encountered before, seemed to follow him, embedding itself in his memory. Even as he returned to the castle, slipping in through a side entrance known only to the royal family, the image of Mary remained vivid in his mind. Later, as he sat in his chambers, the blue tulip placed in a silver goblet of water on his table, William found himself unable to focus on the documents requiring his attention. Lists of wedding preparations, diplomatic correspondences, matters of state that suddenly seemed distant and unimportant. Outside his window, the rain had finally stopped, and a watery sun struggled to break through the clouds. William stood, gazing out at the vista of his father's kingdom, the lands he would one day rule. For the first time, he questioned the path laid out before him. The blue tulip caught his eye, its improbable color a defiance against conventional expectations. Impossible love, Mary had called it. The phrase echoed in his mind, taking root, alongside the memory of blue eyes as clear as summer skies. What if the love that could change the destiny of two reigns emerged from the most unlikely chance of all? The question formed itself unbidden in his thoughts, dangerous and tantalizing in equal measure. William touched the petals of the tulip gently, feeling as though he stood at the edge of a precipice, with no way of knowing what awaited him if he dared to step forward. As night fell over York, two souls lay awake, a prince in his castle and a flower seller in her modest home, each haunted by an encounter that, by all laws of nature and society, should have been inconsequential, yet somehow felt like the beginning of something momentous. The royal castle of York stood silhouetted against the morning sky, its stone towers reaching toward the heavens like ancient fingers. Within its sturdy walls, Prince William paced the length of his private chambers, pausing occasionally to glance at the blue tulip that now resided in a crystal vase upon his desk. 3 days had passed since his encounter with Mary in the marketplace, yet her face remained etched in his memory with startling clarity. "Your Highness?" A discreet knock accompanied the voice of his manservant Thomas. "The king requests a presence in the council chamber. The emissaries from Northumbria have arrived to discuss the wedding arrangements." William's jaw tightened. "Inform my father I shall attend him shortly." As Thomas departed, William approached the blue tulip, its vibrant color seemingly untouched by time. The petals remained firm, the stem straight and proud. He touched it gently, his fingers tracing the delicate veins that ran through each petal. "Impossible love," he murmured, repeating Mary's words. The phrase haunted him, even as he donned his formal attire and prepared to discuss his future with Lady Eleanor, a woman he had met only twice and felt nothing for beyond a courteous respect. Later that afternoon, after enduring hours of diplomatic negotiations disguised as wedding preparations, William made his decision. Changing into simple garments once more, he slipped from the castle and made his way back to the marketplace. The day was clear, the recent rains having washed the world clean. The marketplace bustled with activity, merchants calling out their wares, children darting between stalls, dogs barking at passing carts. William's heart quickened as he approached the area where Mary's flower stall had stood. For a moment he feared she might not be there, but then he saw her, arranging a fresh display of early summer blooms. She looked up as he approached, and recognition dawned in her eyes. "The gentleman who fell," she said with a warm smile. "William, wasn't it? I see you've managed to stay upright today." "Indeed," he replied, returning her smile. "The improved weather helps considerably." Mary nodded, her hands continuing to arrange flowers with practiced ease. "And how fares your blue tulip? Has it brought any brightness to your days?" "More than you know," William admitted. "I've never seen its like before. Are they common in these parts?" "Far from it," Mary replied. "They come from distant lands to the east. My father taught me how to grow them. He traveled widely in his youth, before settling here and joining the army." "Your father was a soldier?" William asked, his interest genuinely piqued. Mary's expression softened with memory. "Yes, a captain in the Royal Infantry. He died in the Northern Campaign 10 years ago now." William felt as though the ground had shifted beneath his feet. "The Northern Campaign? Against the Scottish rebels?" "The very same," Mary confirmed, looking at him curiously. "Did you know of it?" William struggled to maintain his composure. "I had a relative who fought there," he said, the half-truth bitter on his tongue. The Northern Campaign had been a brutal affair, one that had nearly cost him his life. As a young prince of 30, eager to prove himself in battle, William had led a contingent against Scottish forces. During a particularly fierce engagement, he had been separated from his guards and surrounded by enemy soldiers. It was then that a captain of the Royal Infantry had charged into the fray, cutting a path to the prince and defending him at the cost of his own life. William had never forgotten the man's face, contorted in pain, yet determined as he fell, having ensured the prince's safety. "What was your father's name?" William asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Captain James Fletcher," Mary replied. "He served the crown faithfully for 20 years. The name struck William like a physical blow. Captain Fletcher, the very man who had saved his life, the man whose final words had been a plea for the prince to look after his family. A promise William had made in the heat of battle, but had failed to honor, not through lack of caring, but because in the chaos that followed, he had never learned the captain's full name or of his family's whereabouts. "Are you well?" Mary asked, concern etching her features. "You've gone quite pale." William forced himself to nod. "Just a momentary dizziness. It's passing now." Mary selected a sprig of lavender from her display and handed it to him. "Breathe this in. It helps to clear the head." William accepted the lavender, inhaling its soothing scent. "Your father," he ventured after a moment, "did you ever learn the details of how he died?" A shadow passed over Mary's face. "Only that he died heroically, saving the life of another soldier. The messenger who brought the news said my father's last thoughts were of my daughter and me." She paused, blinking rapidly. "I'm sorry. It's been many years, but the grief still catches me unawares sometimes." "There is no need to apologize," William said gently. "Grief for those we love knows no timeline." Mary smiled gratefully. "You speak with unusual wisdom for a—" She stopped, seeming to catch herself. "Forgive me. I shouldn't presume to know your station." William felt a flicker of alarm. Had she recognized him? "My station is of no consequence," he said quickly, "but I would like to purchase some more of your flowers if I may." "Of course," Mary replied, gesturing to her display. "What would please you?" "Another blue tulip, if you have one to spare." Mary selected one from a bucket partially hidden beneath her stall. "I keep the rarest ones protected," she explained. "They're too precious to display openly." As she wrapped the stem in damp cloth, Mary added, "My father used to bring flowers back from his campaigns. Wherever he went, he would find a local bloom to bring home to my mother and me. He said beauty could be found even in the darkest places if one knew where to look." William felt emotion welling in his throat. The debt he owed to this woman's father was immeasurable, and she had no idea who he truly was or the connection between them. "Your father sounds like a remarkable man," he managed. "He was," Mary agreed, handing him the wrapped tulip. "As much a gardener at heart as a soldier. He taught me everything I know about flowers." As their fingers brushed in the exchange, William felt that same inexplicable connection he had experienced during their first meeting. It was as if fate itself was weaving their lives together, creating a pattern too complex for either of them to fully comprehend. "Will you be at the market tomorrow?" he asked impulsively. Mary's eyes, those extraordinary blue eyes, studied him with gentle curiosity. "I'm here every day but Sunday. The flowers don't sell themselves after all." William nodded, already planning his return. "Until tomorrow then, Mary Fletcher." As he walked away, the blue tulip carefully held in his hand, William's mind raced with the implications of what he had learned. The daughter of the man who had saved his life was now selling flowers in the marketplace, struggling to support herself and her child. A debt of honor bound him to her, a debt he had unknowingly left unpaid for far too long. And beneath that sense of obligation lay something else, something that made his heart beat faster whenever their eyes met. Something that felt dangerously like the beginning of love. The royal gardens of York Castle sprawled across several acres behind the imposing stone walls, a verdant haven few commoners ever had the privilege to glimpse. Meticulously maintained. Pathways wound between beds of exotic flowers, imported shrubs and trees centuries old. Fountains burbled softly, their waters catching the early summer sunlight, casting prismatic rainbows across the manicured lawns. Prince William stood beside the tallest of these fountains, a magnificent marble creation depicting Neptune and his sea creatures. His royal attire had been exchanged for the simple garments of a castle steward, though one of unusually fine bearing. His eyes constantly darted toward the eastern gate, where the master gardener would soon appear, accompanying the woman William had been unable to forget. 3 days had passed since his discovery of Mary's identity, 3 days of careful planning, of sleepless nights filled with thoughts of duty, honor, and the blue eyes that haunted his dreams. Finally, he had devised a reason to bring her to the castle without arousing suspicion. The creaking of the garden gate sent his heart racing. The stooped figure of Master Thorne, the elderly head gardener, appeared first, followed by Mary, whose expression was one of barely contained wonder as she took in the splendor around her. "Your worship," Master Thorne addressed William with the respect due to a high-ranking steward, unaware of his true identity. "I've brought the flower seller as requested. She has the rare blooms you wish to consider for the royal wedding." William nodded, maintaining the pretense. "Thank you, Master Thorne. You may return to your duties. I shall escort the good woman myself once our business is concluded." The old gardener bowed and shuffled away, leaving William alone with Mary, who curtsied respectfully, her basket of blue tulips held before her like an offering. "Mistress Fletcher," William acknowledged, his voice formal while others might be within earshot. "I appreciate your willingness to bring your wares for consideration." Mary's eyes, bright with curiosity, met his. "I was surprised to receive a summons to the castle. I did not realize my humble flowers had attracted such notice." William gestured for her to follow him deeper into the gardens, toward a secluded area known as the Queen's Bower, a place rarely visited since his mother's death many years before. "Your blue tulips are extraordinary," he said as they walked. The master of ceremonies thought they might make a unique addition to the royal wedding decorations. Mary's steps faltered slightly at this mention of the wedding, though she recovered quickly. "I am honored, though I fear I could not supply enough for such a grand occasion. I have only a small plot for cultivation." They reached the Queen's Bower, a circular garden enclosed by a wall of climbing roses, accessible only through a single arched entrance. Inside, stone benches surrounded a small reflecting pool, the surface of which mirrored the clouds drifting overhead. Once certain they were alone, William's formal demeanor fell away. "Mary," he said, his voice softer now, "I must confess this talk of wedding flowers is merely a pretext. I wish to speak with you privately, away from the eyes and ears of the marketplace." Confusion flickered across her face. "I don't understand. Why would you—" She stopped suddenly, her eyes widening as realization dawned. "You're not a steward," William shook his head slowly. "No," he admitted, "I am not." Mary took a step back, her hands tightening around her basket. "Who are you, then?" The moment of truth had arrived. William drew a deep breath. "I am Prince William of Lancaster, heir to the throne of England." The color drained from Mary's face. She sank onto one of the stone benches, her basket sliding to the ground, scattering blue petals across the flagstones. "All this time, in the marketplace, you were the prince?" William knelt before her, gathering the fallen tulips and returning them to her basket. "I often disguise myself to walk among the people. It is the only freedom I have from the constraints of court life. But why reveal yourself to me now? Why bring me here?" Mary's voice trembled slightly, caught between awe and apprehension. William sat beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. "Because of your father, Captain James Fletcher." Mary's breath caught. "What of my father?" "He saved my life during the Northern Campaign," William said gently. "I was the soldier he died protecting." Tears welled in Mary's eyes. "You? But they said it was—" She stopped, understanding blossoming across her features. "They would not have revealed it was the prince himself, would they?" "No," William confirmed. "For reasons of security and morale, the truth was kept hidden. But I never forgot his sacrifice, nor the promise I made to him as he lay dying." "What promise?" Mary whispered. "That I would see his family cared for," William said, regret evident in his voice. "A promise I failed to keep, for in the chaos that followed, I never learned his full name or where to find his loved ones, not until I met you in the marketplace." Mary sat in stunned silence, absorbing this revelation. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady, despite the tears that tracked down her cheeks. "My father would have considered it his duty and his honor. He would not have expected anything in return." "Perhaps not," William agreed. "But I have carried the weight of that unfulfilled promise for a decade. Now that I have found you, I intend to honor it." Mary wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "I need no royal charity, Your Highness. My daughter and I have managed well enough these years." William smiled at her pride, so similar to the quiet dignity her father had shown. "It is not charity, Mary. It is a debt of honor long overdue." They sat in silence for a moment. The only sounds the gentle splashing of the reflecting pool and the distant calls of birds. Finally, Mary spoke again. "You mentioned a royal wedding. You are to be married." William's expression darkened. "To Lady Eleanor of Northumbria, a political match arranged by my father to secure peace between our realms. Do you love her?" The question was direct, without artifice or guile. "I have met her twice," William replied honestly. "She seems kind and well-educated. But no, there is no love between us. That is not the purpose of such unions." Mary nodded, her eyes reflecting a deep understanding of the burdens of duty. "Life gives us different paths, Your Highness. Some are chosen for us, others we make ourselves." "Please," William said softly, "when we are alone, call me William. Here in this garden, I would be just a man, not a prince." Mary looked at him, her blue eyes searching his face as if seeing him truly for the first time. "Very well, William." His name on her lips sent a warmth through him that defied reason. "Will you come again tomorrow?" he asked. "I can arrange for Master Thorn to bring you through the East Gate. We can speak more of your father and perhaps discuss how I might fulfill my promise at last." Mary hesitated, clearly torn between prudence and the connection they both felt. "It would be improper," she began, but her resolve seemed to waver. "Nothing improper need occur," William assured her. "Just conversation in the open air of the garden. I have spent 10 years not knowing the man who saved my life. I would know him now through the memories of his daughter." Finally, Mary nodded. "For my father's memory, then." But both knew, even as they spoke the words, that something deeper than obligation or memory was drawing them together. Something as rare and improbable as the blue tulips that had first connected them. As William escorted Mary back to the garden gate, they passed a bed of newly planted roses. Mary paused, bending to examine them with a professional eye. "These will not thrive here," she observed. "The soil is too wet, and they have too little sun." William watched her, fascinated by the confident knowledge she displayed. Perhaps you could advise Master Thorn on their care." Mary smiled, a genuine smile that transformed her face. "Perhaps I could." At the gate, they parted with formal courtesy, mindful of watching eyes. But as Mary turned to leave, she reached into her basket and withdrew a single blue tulip. "The life gives us flowers in unlikely places," she said softly, placing it in his hand. The echo of her words from their first meeting sent a shiver through William's soul. He watched her walk away, the blue tulip clutched in his hand, aware that he stood at a crossroads. Ahead lay the path of duty, his betrothal, the political alliance, the future that had been planned for him since birth. Yet beside it now appeared another path, unexpected and fraught with complications, yet somehow illuminated with a light, more genuine than any he had known before. That night, as Lady Eleanor's emissaries dined in the great hall, discussing wedding arrangements with the king, Prince William stood at his chamber window, gazing out at the Queen's bower, barely visible in the moonlight. The blue tulip rested in a silver chalice beside him, its improbable color a reminder that sometimes the most beautiful things in life were those that defied convention and expectation. The Queen's bower had become their sanctuary over the weeks that followed. Each afternoon, as the castle settled into its daily rhythms, Mary would arrive with her basket of flowers, ostensibly to consult with the royal gardeners. And each afternoon, Prince William would find reason to walk the gardens, their paths inevitably converging in that secluded circle of roses, where rank and station seemed to dissolve like morning mist under the summer sun. Today, the air was heavy, with the scent of blooming roses and the promise of rain. William arrived first, dismissing his attendants with practiced ease. He paced the perimeter of the small garden, his thoughts in turmoil. 3 days hence, Lady Eleanor would arrive at court for the formal announcement of their betrothal. The wheels of diplomacy and duty turned inexorably forward, even as his heart pulled him in another direction entirely. The soft sound of footsteps on the gravel path alerted him to Mary's approach. He turned, and the sight of her momentarily banished his troubled thoughts. She wore a dress of soft green linen, simpler than court fashion, but flattering to her slender figure. Her dark hair was partially loose today, secured only by a ribbon that matched her dress, the rest falling in gentle waves past her shoulders. "You seem troubled," she observed as she entered the bower, setting her basket down on one of the stone benches. Today it contained not only blue tulips, but also sprigs of lavender and bunches of white roses. William managed a smile. "Is it so obvious?" "To me, yes," Mary replied with that directness he had come to cherish. In a court full of courtiers, who spoke in riddles and veiled meanings, her honesty was as refreshing as cool water on a summer's day. He sighed, running a hand through his hair in a gesture that belonged to William the man, not William the prince. Lady Eleanor arrives on Saturday. Mary's hands, which had been arranging flowers in a small stone urn, stilled momentarily before continuing their work. "I see. The formal announcement will be made at a grand feast. After that, the betrothal will be official, and preparations for the wedding will begin in earnest." Mary nodded, her expression carefully composed, though William thought he detected a shadow in her blue eyes. "That is as it should be. You are the prince, and this marriage will bring peace to 2 kingdoms." "Peace," William echoed, the word tasting bitter on his tongue. At the cost of any hope for personal happiness, Mary turned to face him fully. "Many would consider marriage to a noble lady, with all the privileges and comforts of royal life, a very great happiness indeed. Those who have never known what it is to truly connect with another soul, perhaps," William replied, moving closer to her. "These past weeks with you, Mary, I have felt more alive, more myself than in all my years at court." A flush colored Mary's cheeks, but she did not step away. We have merely talked, shared stories and memories. It's natural to find comfort in such simple pleasures. William shook his head. It is far more than comfort. When I am with you, the world seems more vivid, more full of possibility. You see me, Mary, not the crown prince, not the future king, but me. The air between them seemed to thicken, charged, with unspoken feelings. Mary's fingers twisted nervously in the folds of her skirt. Your Highness, William, we must not speak of such things. You are promised to another. We are from different worlds. Yet here we stand, in the same garden, breathing the same air. William countered softly. He reached out, hesitating for a moment before gently taking her hand. Tell me you feel nothing, and I will never speak of this again. Mary's eyes met his, vulnerable and conflicted. What I feel matters not. Reality remains unchanged. A distant roll of thunder sounded, the promised storm drawing nearer. Neither moved, their hands still joined, suspended in a moment outside of time and duty. I should go, Mary finally whispered, though she made no move to withdraw her hand. The weather is turning, and Rose will worry if I am late. William knew she was right. They both had responsibilities that could not be ignored. He to his kingdom, she to her daughter. Yet he found himself unable to release her hand, unwilling to break the fragile connection between them. Stay, he said, his voice barely audible. Above the rustling of rose leaves in the rising wind. Just a little longer. The first heavy drops of rain began to fall, pattering on the leaves overhead. Still, they remained, caught in each other's gaze as the shower intensified, plastering Mary's hair to her face and soaking William's fine linen shirt. A particularly loud crack of thunder broke the spell. Mary pulled her hand away, looking around. In dismay at the now drenching rain, we must seek shelter. William glanced toward the small stone pavilion at the far end of the garden. There, he said, grasping her hand once more and leading her quickly across the rain-slicked grass. They reached the pavilion breathless, water streaming from their clothes. It was a simple structure, little more than a roof supported by marble. Columns, open to the elements on all sides but offering protection from the downpour. Mary pushed wet strands of hair from her face, laughing despite herself at their predicament. Look at us, she said, gesturing to their sodden appearance. Like drowned rats, the both of us. William found himself laughing too, the tension of the earlier moment broken by the absurdity of their situation. I doubt Lady Eleanor would recognize her noble betrothed now. The laughter faded from Mary's eyes at the mention of Lady Eleanor. She took a step back, suddenly aware of how improper their situation had become. Alone, rain-soaked, standing close enough that William could see the droplets of water clinging to her eyelashes. I must go, she said, her voice firmer now. Rain, or no rain, this is not proper. Mary, William said, reaching for her hand again, but she shook her head. You are promised to another, she repeated, the words like a mantra, a shield against what she truly felt. We are of different worlds. The golden light of the setting sun broke through the storm clouds, casting the rain-washed garden in an ethereal glow. Mary stood silhouetted against this light, her simple dress clinging to her form, her hair a dark curtain down her back. To William, she had never looked more beautiful. The worlds can change, he said softly. Boundaries can be redrawn. Mary's eyes filled with tears that mingled with the raindrops on her cheeks. Not these boundaries, William. You know that as well as I. She turned to leave, to step back into the rain that now fell more gently, to return to her life as it had been before him. Simpler, perhaps lonelier, but safe from the pain that must inevitably come from loving a man who belonged to another. Wait, William said, his voice catching on the word. In 2 strides he was beside her, his hand gentle on her arm, turning her back to face him. Time seemed to slow. The patter of rain on the pavilion roof faded to a distant murmur. Mary looked up at him, her blue eyes wide, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. Without conscious thought, William reached up to brush it away, his fingers lingering against the softness of her skin. "You should be by my side at the altar," he whispered, the words torn from some deep, honest place within him. "Not her." Mary's breath caught. "But I won't be," she replied, her voice breaking. Something in her tone, in the raw honesty of her pain, shattered William's last restraint. He bent his head slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished. She didn't. Their lips met in a kiss that began as gentle as a whisper, but quickly deepened with the force of feelings too long denied. William's arms encircled her waist, drawing her closer as Mary's hands moved to his shoulders, then to the nape of his neck. The world around them disappeared. The rain, the garden, the castle with all its demands and expectations, all faded to insignificance compared to the miracle of this moment, this connection. When they finally broke apart, both were trembling, overwhelmed by what had happened and what it meant. Mary stepped back, her fingers touching her lips as if she could still feel the pressure of his kiss. "I shouldn't have," she began, but William shook his head. "If that was wrong, then I no longer know what right is," he said fervently. The sound of voices approaching, servants sent to gather furniture from the gardens before the storm worsened, intruded upon their private world. Mary's eyes widened in alarm. "I must go," she said urgently. "If we are discovered—" William nodded, understanding the danger. "Go quickly, through the east gate. I will distract them." Mary gathered her skirts, preparing to dash through the rain, but paused for one last moment. "Whatever happens," she said softly, "remember that in another life, in a kinder world, things might have been different." Then she was gone, a fleeting figure through the curtain of rain. William stood watching until she disappeared from sight, the taste of her still on his lips, his heart both fuller and more tormented than it had ever been, unnoticed by either. Of them, a pair of eyes had witnessed their parting. A young kitchen maid, sent to check if the garden pavilions needed to be secured against the storm. She slipped away silently, clutching a new and dangerous secret to her breast. The throne room of York Castle stood silent and imposing, its high vaulted ceiling disappearing into shadows above. Banners bearing the royal crest hung from massive wooden beams, while afternoon sunlight filtered through stained glass windows, casting jewel-toned patterns across the stone floor. King Edward sat upon the ornate throne, his aging frame still commanding respect, his shrewd eyes fixed upon his son who stood before him. 7 days, William, the king's voice echoed in the cavernous space. In 7 days you shall stand before God and country to pledge yourself to Lady Eleanor. The arrangements are complete, the diplomatic agreements finalized. Northumbria and Lancaster will be united, ensuring peace for generations to come. William stood with perfect posture, his royal training evident in every line of his body, while inside, a tempest raged. 3 days had passed since the kiss in the rain, 3 days in which he had been unable to meet Mary, 3 days of diplomatic banquets and formal preparations for the arrival of Lady Eleanor and her entourage. "Father," he began, choosing his words with care, "I have served the crown faithfully all my life. I have studied statecraft, led men in battle, and prepared myself for the responsibilities that await me. But I must ask, is there no way to secure this alliance without my marriage?" King Edward's bushy eyebrows drew together, his lips pressing into a thin line beneath his silver beard. "You question this now? After months of preparation? With emissaries already in our court?" William took a steadying breath. "I question whether my personal happiness must be sacrificed entirely for political gain." The king's hand tightened on the carved arm of his throne. "Personal happiness?" he repeated, as if the concept were foreign to him. "You speak like a lovesick boy, not the future King of England. What notion has taken hold of you?" William remained, silent, unwilling to reveal the truth, knowing it would only inflame his father's temper further. King Edward studied his son's face, his own expression softening slightly. "William, I did not marry your mother for love. It was an arranged match like countless royal marriages before and since. Yet in time we found contentment, even affection. Lady Eleanor is accomplished, well-bred, and by all accounts gentle in nature. She will make a suitable queen." "Suitable," William echoed, the word hollow in his ears. "Is that all we should aspire to? Suitability?" The king rose from his throne, his movements betraying the stiffness in his joints that he worked so hard to conceal from the court. He approached his son, placing a hand on his shoulder. "The crown is not merely a symbol of power, my son. It is a burden, a responsibility to put the needs of the kingdom above your own desires. Whatever or whoever has captured your fancy, you must set it aside. The future of our people depends upon this alliance." William met his father's gaze, seeing not just the stern king, but also the man who had taught him to ride, to wield a sword, to value honor above all else. What if there were another way to secure peace? Trade agreements, perhaps, or— "Enough," the king interrupted, his voice quiet, but brooking no argument. "The decision is made. The announcement will proceed as planned. You have 7 days to reconcile yourself to your duty." With that, King Edward turned and exited through a side door, leaving William alone in the vast throne room, the weight of expectation pressing down upon him like a physical force. Later that evening, William sought solace in the one place where he might find understanding. His sister, Princess Helena, 2 years his junior, had always been his confidant, her gentle wisdom a balm to his troubled spirit. He found her in her private solar, a beautifully appointed room with tapestries depicting scenes of hunt and harvest, adorning the walls. Helena looked up from her embroidery as he entered, her face lighting with pleasure at the sight of her brother. "William, I had thought you occupied with preparations for Lady Eleanor's arrival." William sank into a chair opposite her, rubbing a hand across his face. "I needed escape from talk of wedding arrangements and diplomatic protocols." Helena set aside her needlework, her perceptive eyes studying him. "You look troubled, brother, more than the usual reluctance toward state occasions." "Am I so transparent?" he asked with a wry smile. "Only to those who know you well," she replied. "Tell me what weighs on your heart." William hesitated only briefly before the words poured forth. His chance meeting with Mary in the marketplace, the discovery of her identity as Captain Fletcher's daughter, their meetings in the Queen's Bower, and finally, the kiss that had changed everything. Helena listened without interruption, her expression shifting from surprise to understanding to concern. When he finished, she reached across to take his hand. "You love her," she said simply. It was not a question, but William answered nonetheless. "Yes, more than I thought possible." Helena squeezed his hand. "Love is rare, William, especially for those of royal birth. Most of us must be content with suitable matches and the hope that affection might grow in time." "That's what father said," William replied, frustration evident in his voice. "But," Helena continued, her voice soft but firm, "love of the kind you describe, one that sees past titles and stations to the person beneath, that is rarer still, a treasure not to be lightly discarded." William looked at his sister with surprise. "You believe I should follow my heart?" Helena's expression grew thoughtful. "I believe that a king who has never known true love may rule justly, but perhaps not with the full measure of compassion and understanding his people deserve. There is wisdom to be found in love, William, a wisdom that no amount of statecraft can teach." Hope flickered in William's chest. "Then you think there might be another way? A path that allows for both duty and love?" "I cannot say," Helena admitted. "The diplomatic concerns are real, and the consequences of breaking the betrothal would be severe. But perhaps... She broke off as a knock sounded at the door. A servant entered, bowing deeply. "Forgive the interruption, your highnesses, but there is a matter requiring Prince William's attention. A woman has been detained at the Eastern Gate, claiming she was invited to consult on the royal gardens." William stood abruptly. "Mary Fletcher?" "Yes, your highness. The captain of the guard found her story suspicious and has taken her for questioning." Cold fear gripped William's heart. "Where is she now?" "In the guardroom by the Eastern Barbican, your highness." William was already moving toward the door when Helena called after him. "William, be careful, eyes are watching." He nodded, forcing himself to slow his pace to a dignified walk, though every instinct urged him to run. The guardroom was a stark, stone chamber with narrow windows set high in the walls, furnished only with a rough wooden table and several stools. Mary sat rigidly on one of these, her face pale but composed, her hands folded in her lap. The captain of the guard, a grizzled veteran named Sir Rowland, stood as William entered. "Your Highness," he said with a bow, "we apprehended this woman, attempting to enter the royal gardens without proper authorization. She claims to have been invited to consult on plantings for the royal wedding." William kept his expression carefully neutral, though it cost him dearly not to go immediately to Mary's side. "I am aware of Mistress Fletcher's arrangement with the master gardener. She has provided rare blooms for the wedding celebrations and has been advising on their cultivation." Sir Rowland's eyes narrowed slightly. "With respect, your highness, we received no notification of such an arrangement, and with Lady Eleanor's imminent arrival, security protocols demand—" "Your vigilance is commendable, Sir Rowland," William interrupted smoothly, "but in this instance, unnecessary. Mistress Fletcher has my permission to enter the gardens as required for her consultation work." The captain hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the situation, but unwilling to directly contradict the prince. "As you wish, your highness. Shall I have someone escort her to the gardens?" "That won't be necessary," William replied. "I shall speak with Mistress Fletcher myself regarding the procedures for future visits." "We wouldn't want another such misunderstanding." Sir Rowland bowed, though doubt lingered in his eyes. "Very good, your highness." When the guardroom had emptied, William finally allowed himself to approach Mary. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. "Did they treat you poorly?" Mary shook her head. "They were stern, but not unkind. I should not have come, but I needed to warn you." She broke off, glancing toward the door to ensure they were truly alone. "Warn me of what?" William prompted, concern evident in his voice. "There are whispers in the marketplace," Mary said, her voice barely above a whisper. "A kitchen maid has been speaking of seeing the prince in a compromising situation with a commoner in the gardens. The story grows with each telling." William's jaw tightened. "The maid from the day of the storm," Mary nodded. "If the tale reaches the king's ears, or worse, Lady Eleanor's family—" "I understand," William said grimly. "Thank you for the warning." Their eyes met, the memory of their kiss hanging in the air between them. Mary was the first to look away. "I should not have—" "Come," she repeated. "It was foolish to risk being seen, especially now." "No," William said firmly. "I'm glad you did. But you're right. It's too dangerous for us to meet here now. Too many eyes, too many ears." Mary stood, straightening her simple gown. "Then this is goodbye, your highness. In a week you will be betrothed, and whatever has passed between us must be forgotten." William felt as though a knife had been plunged into his heart. "Mary, please," she interrupted, her voice breaking slightly. "Do not make this harder than it already is. You have your duty, and I have mine. To my daughter, to the memory of my father who gave his life for the crown you will one day wear." Before William could respond, the door opened and Sir Rowland reappeared. "Your Highness, the king requests your presence. Lady Eleanor's advance party has been sighted approaching the city gates. Reality crashed back upon them with brutal force. William nodded to the captain before turning back to Mary. "Mistress Fletcher, I thank you for your horticultural advice. The master gardener will contact you should we require further consultation." Mary curtsied, her face a mask of proper deference that did not reach her eyes. "It has been my honor to serve the crown, Your Highness." As she was escorted from the guardroom, William watched her go, feeling as though a part of his soul departed with her. The path before him seemed suddenly cold and barren, devoid of the light her presence had brought into his life. But as he made his way to meet his father and greet the representatives of his future bride, a seed of determination took root in his heart. The game was not yet over, the final moves not yet played. Somehow, there had to be a way to fulfill both duty and love, and he would find it, no matter the cost. A pall of dread hung over York Castle like a shroud. What had begun as isolated cases of fever in the lower town had swiftly become an epidemic that showed no respect for walls or rank. The illness struck with frightening speed, first chills and headache, then a raging fever that left victims delirious, their skin burning to the touch, their throats so parched they could barely swallow water. Court physicians moved through the castle with grave expressions, their leather masks stuffed with herbs, doing little to protect them from the invisible enemy that stalked the corridors. Servants fell ill first, then knights and ladies in waiting, and finally, 3 days after Lady Eleanor's arrival, Princess Helena collapsed during the evening meal, her face alarmingly flushed, her eyes glazed with fever. William paced outside, his sister's chambers while physicians attended her, his mind racing with fear and helplessness. The sound of the door opening made him turn sharply. The royal physician, Master Gregory, emerged, his shoulders slumped with exhaustion, his eyes somber above his mask. "How is she?" William demanded, not bothering with formalities. Master Gregory shook his head slowly. "The fever burns hotter by the hour, Your Highness. We have tried cooling cloths, bloodletting, and all the standard remedies, but—" William felt a cold knot of dread in his stomach. "But this malady seems resistant to our treatments. The princess is young and strong, which gives her an advantage, but I cannot offer false hope. Many with similar symptoms have—" The physician trailed off, unwilling to speak the dire words aloud. "There must be something more we can do," William insisted, his voice tight with desperation. "We will continue our efforts, of course, Master," Gregory assured him. "Perhaps the fever will break on its own. Sometimes the body finds ways to heal itself that medicine cannot explain." The physician bowed and departed, leaving William alone in the corridor, the weight of helplessness crushing down upon him. He entered Helena's chamber quietly, his heart constricting at the sight of his vibrant sister, now lying pale and still, her golden hair plastered to her forehead with sweat. A lady-in-waiting sat beside the bed, applying cool cloths to Helena's face and neck, though they seemed to provide little relief. William took his sister's hand, alarmed by the heat radiating from her skin. "Fight, Helena," he whispered. "You must fight." Her eyes fluttered open, glazed and unfocused. "William?" Her voice was a rasp, barely audible. "I'm here," he assured her, squeezing her hand gently. "So hot," she murmured, "like burning from inside." The physicians are doing everything they can," William said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Helena's eyes drifted closed again, her breathing labored. William sat with her until dawn, watching the rise and fall of her chest, his mind churning with fear and an increasing sense that conventional medicine would not be enough to save her. As the first light of morning filtered through the chamber, windows, an idea took shape in William's mind, desperate, perhaps foolish, but born of the knowledge that sometimes wisdom came from unexpected sources. He summoned Thomas, his most trusted servant, and gave quiet instructions. An hour later, Mary Fletcher was led into the castle through a side entrance, her expression a mixture of concern and confusion. William met her in a small antechamber, adjacent to Helena's rooms, his appearance shocking her. His face was haggard with worry, his clothing rumpled from the night's vigil. "Your Highness," she began, but William cut her off. "It's Helena," he said without preamble. "My sister is gravely ill with the fever. The court physicians have tried everything, but she grows weaker by the hour." Mary's expression softened with genuine concern. "I am sorry to hear it, but why have you summoned me?" William took a deep breath. "You once mentioned that your father taught you about plants, not just for beauty, but for healing. You spoke of remedies your mother prepared, remedies that saved lives when conventional medicine failed." Understanding dawned in Mary's eyes. "You wish me to treat the princess. Your Highness, I am a flower seller, not a physician. The royal doctors would never—" "The royal doctors have done all they can," William interrupted, his voice raw with emotion. "My sister is dying, Mary. If there is anything, any remedy, any knowledge passed down through your family, that might help her. I beg you to try." Mary's blue eyes searched his face, seeing the depth of his fear and love for his sister. After a moment, she nodded slowly. "I cannot promise anything. But yes, my mother was known for her skill with healing herbs. She taught me what she knew. Before she passed." Hope flickered in William's chest. "What would you need?" Mary thought for a moment. "Fresh herbs, thyme, rosemary, feverfew if it can be found. Clean water, honey, and—" She hesitated. "This may sound strange, but I would need some of the blue tulips. My father believed they had properties unlike any other flower." William didn't question her. "You shall have everything. Wait here." He returned shortly with a servant carrying a basket containing everything Mary had requested, including several of the precious blue tulips from the royal gardens. Mary immediately set to work, her hands moving with practiced efficiency as she crushed herbs, mixed them with honey and water, and added the crushed petals of a blue tulip. "This must be steeped until the water turns the color of a clear sky," she explained as she worked, "then strained and given in small sips, as hot as the princess can bear." William watched her, struck by the quiet confidence in her movements. "How did you learn all this?" Mary's eyes remained on her task, but a small smile touched her lips. "My mother was the daughter of a wise woman from a village near the Scottish border. People came from miles around seeking her remedies. When she married my father and moved to York, she brought her knowledge with her. After she died, I continued her work among our neighbors." As Mary worked, William was struck by the realization that had circumstances been different, had Mary been born to nobility instead of a soldier's family, her knowledge and skills would have been celebrated, not hidden away in a humble flower stall at the marketplace. When the remedy was prepared, Mary strained the liquid into a small pottery cup. The resulting brew was indeed the color of a summer sky, with a fragrance that was both floral and herbal, strangely soothing. "It must be given every hour," Mary instructed, "and cooling cloths should still be applied, but soaked in water with these herbs added." She handed William a small pouch of mixed dried plants. "The fever may worsen before it breaks. That is normal, but if the princess survives until sunrise tomorrow, she will recover." William took the cup and pouch, gratitude evident in his eyes. "I cannot thank you enough for this." Mary's expression grew serious. "You understand the risk I take in offering this remedy? If it fails, if the princess—" She couldn't complete the thought. "I take full responsibility," William assured her. "No blame will fall on you, whatever the outcome." Mary nodded, though doubt lingered in her eyes. "I should go before my presence raises questions." "Stay," William said impulsively. "Please, at least until we see if the remedy has any effect." After a moment's hesitation, Mary agreed. William escorted her to a small chamber adjacent to Helena's rooms, where she could remain out of sight but close at hand if needed. The day passed in tense vigilance. William administered the remedy himself, holding the cup to his sister's parched lips, encouraging her to swallow the blue liquid. Court physicians came and went, eyeing the strange brew with suspicion, but too desperate to forbid anything that might help. As evening approached, Helena's condition worsened, just as Mary had warned. Her temperature soared, her breathing became rapid and shallow, and she thrashed weakly against the bedclothes, murmuring incoherently. William sent for Mary, his face tight with worry. "This is how it should progress," she assured him after examining Helena. "The body fights hardest before the fever breaks. Continue with the remedy and keep the herbal cloths cool and fresh." Through the night they worked together, William and Mary side by side, aristocrat and commoner united in their battle against death. They spoke little, focused entirely on their task, yet William felt a deepening bond forming between them, a shared purpose, transcending the barriers of rank and station. As dawn approached, Helena's fever raged so intensely that William feared they would lose her. Mary prepared a final, stronger dose of the remedy, adding the last of the blue tulip petals. "This is the moment of crisis," she said softly, as William held the cup to his sister's lips. "If she survives the next hour, the fever will break." They waited in tense silence, watching each labored breath, each flutter of Helena's eyelids. And then, as the first rays of morning light streamed through the chamber windows, a miracle occurred. Helena's breathing eased, her skin cooled, and her restless movements stilled. She fell into a deep, peaceful sleep, her face no longer flushed with fever, but bearing the healthy pallor of one who has survived a terrible ordeal. William took Helena's hand, feeling her pulse, steady and strong, where before it had been racing and weak. "She's cooling," he whispered, hardly daring to believe it. Mary placed her own hand on Helena's forehead and nodded, a smile of relief lighting her tired face. "The fever has broken. She will sleep now, perhaps for many hours, but when she wakes, she will be herself again." William turned to Mary, overcome with emotion. Without thinking, he pulled her into an embrace, holding her tightly against him. "You saved her," he said, his voice thick with gratitude. "When all others failed, you saved my sister." For a brief moment, Mary allowed herself to return his embrace, her own eyes bright with unshed tears. Then she gently extricated herself, aware of the impropriety of their position. "It was not me alone," she said modestly. "The remedies are ancient knowledge, passed down through generations of women. I was merely the vessel." Before William could respond, the chamber door opened and King Edward himself entered, his face drawn with worry for his daughter. He stopped short at the sight of Mary, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. "What is this?" he demanded. "Who is this woman, and what is she doing in the princess's chamber?" William stepped forward, placing himself protectively between his father and Mary. "Father, this is Mary Fletcher, daughter of Captain James Fletcher, who gave his life saving mine in the Northern Campaign. When the physician's remedies failed, I sought her help. Her knowledge of healing herbs has broken Helena's fever." The king's gaze shifted to his daughter, noting her peaceful sleep and cooler complexion. "The fever is truly broken?" "Yes, Your Majesty," Mary replied, curtsying deeply. "The princess will recover fully with rest and care." King Edward studied Mary with new interest, his initial suspicion giving way to grudging respect. "You have healing knowledge beyond our court physicians." "Only different knowledge, Your Majesty," Mary answered carefully. "Knowledge passed from mother to daughter in my family for generations." The king approached Helena's bedside, laying a gentle hand on her forehead. "A father cannot express what it means to see his child snatched from death's grasp," he said quietly. Then, turning to Mary, he added with formal dignity, "You have done a great service to the crown this day, Mistress Fletcher. Name your reward." Mary shook her head. "I seek no reward, Your Majesty. To see the princess recover is reward enough." A flicker of surprise crossed the king's face, followed by something that might have been approval. "Nevertheless, the crown acknowledges its debt to you. We shall speak of this again when my daughter is fully recovered." With that, he departed, leaving William and Mary alone once more with the sleeping princess. Mary gathered her remaining herbs and supplies, preparing to leave. "My father was impressed by you," William said, a note of wonder in his voice. "And that is no small accomplishment." Mary smiled tiredly. "I spoke only the truth. Seeing the princess recover is all the reward I need." She hesitated, then added softly, "Though perhaps in the days to come, you might remember that wisdom and worth are not exclusive to those of noble birth." William reached for her hand, holding it between both of his. "I have never needed reminding of that, Mary Fletcher, and after today, neither will anyone else who witnessed what you have done." As Mary departed the castle, escorted discreetly by Thomas, William watched from a window, his heart fuller than it had been in days. His sister would live, thanks to the courage and knowledge of a flower seller from the marketplace. And in that miracle, perhaps, lay the seed of possibility for a future different from the one that had seemed so inevitable just days before. The marketplace of York hummed with its usual activity, though the pall of the epidemic still lingered in the subdued voices and cautious distances people maintained. Mary moved through her morning routine mechanically, arranging her flowers with practiced hands that belied the turmoil in her heart. 3 days had passed since she had treated Princess Helena. 3 days without word from the castle, though rumors abounded that the princess was recovering swiftly from an illness that had claimed many less fortunate souls. Mary's thoughts drifted constantly to William. His face when Helena's fever broke, the warmth of his embrace, the gratitude in his eyes, these memories sustained and tormented her in equal measure. For in the cold light of day, reality remained unchanged. He was still Prince William, heir to the throne, betrothed to Lady Eleanor of Northumbria. And she was still Mary Fletcher, a widowed flower seller with a young daughter to raise. "These blue ones are unusual," remarked an elderly woman examining Mary's display. "I've never seen such a color." Mary smiled politely. "They're quite rare, my lady. The blue tulips come from distant lands." "How much?" the woman inquired, reaching for her purse. 3 copper pennies, Mary replied, though the true value was far higher. She had found herself unable to charge the full price for the blue tulips, since they had become so intertwined with her memories of William. As she wrapped the stems for her customer, a commotion at the far end of the marketplace caught her attention. People were stepping aside, conversations hushing as a royal herald in full livery made his way through the crowd, followed by 2 palace guards. Mary's heart leapt into her throat as they approached her stall. "Mistress Mary Fletcher?" the herald inquired formally. Mary nodded, her mouth suddenly dry. "Yes, that is me. By command of His Majesty King Edward, you are summoned to the royal presence immediately." The herald's voice carried, causing nearby market-goers to turn and stare. Whispers erupted around them. Mary felt the blood drain from her face. "May I ask the nature of this summons?" she managed, thoughts racing to her daughter, Rose, who was with a neighbor for the day. "That is not for me to say, mistress," the herald replied. "A carriage awaits to convey you to the castle." Mary had no choice but to follow, acutely aware of the curious gazes tracking her progress through the marketplace. Speculation would be rampant by nightfall. Why would the king himself summon a common flower seller? The journey to the castle passed in a blur of anxiety. Mary smoothed her simple dress as best she could, painfully conscious of its worn fabric and practical cut. She had never expected to stand before the king in such humble attire. Upon arrival, she was escorted not to the great hall as expected, but to a smaller chamber lined with tapestries depicting scenes of hunt and harvest. King Edward waited there, seated in a high-backed chair beside a crackling fire. To Mary's surprise, Princess Helena was present as well, reclining on a chaise, still pale but unmistakably recovering, her golden hair arranged in a simple braid. Most unexpected of all was William, standing by the window, tension evident in his posture. Their eyes met briefly as Mary entered, his filled with an emotion she dared not name. Mary sank into a deep curtsy. "Your Majesty, your Highnesses, I am honored by your summons." "Rise, Mistress Fletcher," King Edward commanded, his voice gruff but not unkind. "You stand before us as one to whom the royal family owes a debt of gratitude. My daughter lives because of your knowledge and courage." "I merely did what anyone with my skills would have done, Your Majesty," Mary replied, keeping her eyes respectfully lowered. "Not so," Princess Helena spoke up, her voice still weak but clear. "The court physicians had given me up for lost. You risked much by offering a remedy they had not sanctioned." Mary risked a glance at Helena, finding the princess regarding her with genuine warmth. "I could not stand by when there was a chance to help, Your Highness." King Edward shifted in his chair, studying Mary with shrewd eyes. "My son tells me you are the daughter of Captain James Fletcher, who gave his life protecting William during the Northern Campaign." "Yes, Your Majesty," Mary confirmed, her heart beating faster at this unexpected turn. "A brave man," the king mused. "I remember him, tall with an unusually dignified bearing for one not born to nobility. His sacrifice was not forgotten, though it seems the promise made to care for his family was not adequately fulfilled." Mary's eyes widened slightly. "Your Majesty, I have never complained of my circumstances." "No," the king interrupted, "and that speaks to your character, Mistress Fletcher. But a debt is a debt, and the crown pays its debts." He gestured to William, who stepped forward, his face carefully composed. "I have discussed this matter at length with my father and sister," William began, his voice steady, though his eyes betrayed deeper emotions when they met Mary's. "We are agreed that your service to the crown, both through your father's sacrifice and your own actions in saving Princess Helena, deserves proper recognition." Mary's hands trembled slightly as she clasped them before her, uncertain what was coming. King Edward cleared his throat. "Mistress Fletcher, it is our wish to grant you a royal pension and a position at court as royal herbalist. Your knowledge clearly exceeds that of our physicians in certain respects, and it would benefit the crown to have such wisdom at our disposal." The offer was beyond anything Mary could have imagined. Security for herself and Rose, an honored position, the opportunity to use her knowledge to help others. Yet the thought of being at court daily, seeing William with his future bride, was a different kind of pain than the one she had been preparing herself to bear. Before she could formulate a response, William spoke again. "There is another matter we wish to discuss with you, Mistress Fletcher, a matter of personal significance." Something in his tone made Mary look up sharply. William glanced at his father, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. "In the days since my sister's recovery," William continued, "much has been reconsidered within these walls. Old assumptions questioned, new possibilities explored." He paused, drawing a deep breath. "Including the necessity of my betrothal to Lady Eleanor." Mary felt as though the floor had dropped away beneath her feet. She darted a glance at King Edward, expecting anger, but found instead a thoughtful resignation on his weathered face. "I too have loved a woman who was not chosen for me," the king said quietly, his gaze distant with memory. "Before I was king, before I married William's mother, there was another, a merchant's daughter with eyes like summer skies, but I lacked the courage to defy convention, to fight for what my heart knew to be true. His focus returned to Mary, sharp and assessing. I have watched my son these past weeks. I have seen the change in him, a new purpose, a deeper understanding of our people and their needs, and I have come to believe that perhaps a different kind of queen than we had planned might better serve this kingdom. Mary's breath caught in her throat. Your Majesty, I don't understand. Don't you? The king's bushy eyebrows rose. My son has made his feelings quite clear to me. The question now is whether you return them with equal measure. William moved closer, his eyes never leaving Mary's face. The alliance with Northumbria can be secured through trade agreements and military pacts, he explained, his voice gaining confidence with each word. Lady Eleanor herself has confessed to my sister that she entered into our betrothal with duty rather than desire. She has agreed to a dissolution with surprising grace. What William is attempting to say, Princess Helena interjected with a small smile, is that he wishes to marry for love rather than diplomacy. And the woman he loves, it seems, is you, Mary Fletcher. The world seemed to still around Mary as William knelt before her, taking her trembling hands in his. I love you, he said simply, the words all the more powerful for their directness. I love your wisdom, your courage, your gentle heart. I love the way you see me, not as a prince, but as a man. And if you will have me, I would make you my wife, my queen, my partner in all things. Tears sprang unbidden to Mary's eyes. William, this is impossible. I am a commoner, a flower seller. The nobility would never accept. They will accept what their king decrees, King Edward stated firmly. And I decree that the daughter of Captain James Fletcher, who gave his life for the crown, and who herself saved the princess when all others failed, is worthy of the highest honor this kingdom can bestow. Say yes, Mary, Helena urged softly. I have never seen my brother so alive as when he speaks of you. Mary looked from the king to the princess, and finally to William, still kneeling before her. His eyes filled with a love she had never dared to believe could be openly acknowledged, much less blessed by his family. I love you, she whispered, her voice breaking on the truth she had held inside for so long. With all my heart, I love you, but my daughter. Rose will be welcomed as my own, William promised. A princess of the realm, with all the opportunities and education that entails. Mary thought of her humble home, her stall in the marketplace, the life she had built from the broken pieces left after her husband's death. Then she thought of William, his kindness, his honor, the way he had seen value in her when others saw only a commoner. And in that moment she made her choice. Yes, she said, her voice stronger now. Yes, I will marry you, William. Joy blazed across his face as he rose and, heedless of his father's presence, drew her into his arms. Their kiss was brief, but filled with promise, a seal upon the miraculous turn their lives had taken. When they parted, King Edward was standing, his expression a complex mixture of emotions. It is decided, then. The announcement will be made tomorrow at court. He looked directly at Mary. There will be those who disapprove, who will seek to undermine you. The path will not be easy. Mary straightened her shoulders, feeling a new strength flowing through her. I am the daughter of a soldier, Your Majesty. I do not fear difficult paths. A rare smile crossed the king's face. No, I can see that you don't. He nodded to William. You have chosen well, my son. Perhaps better than I did in my time. Later that afternoon, Mary returned to the marketplace, one last time, her mind still reeling from the morning's events. As agreed, she would tell no one of the impending announcement until it was officially proclaimed. This final day at her flower stall would be her farewell to the life she had known. She arranged her remaining blooms with care, her fingers lingering on the blue tulips that had changed her destiny. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows. Across the emptying marketplace, a figure appeared before her stall. William, once again dressed in the simple clothing of his disguise. "I had to see you once more like this," he said softly, "where it all began." Mary smiled, her heart full to bursting. "The last flowers of the day," she said, selecting a perfect blue tulip and extending it to him, "for remembrance." William took the flower, then knelt suddenly before her, in full view of the few remaining merchants and customers. A hush fell over the marketplace as recognition dawned on the faces of onlookers. "Mary Fletcher," William said clearly, "will you marry me and stand by my side as princess of this realm and future queen?" Gasps and murmurs erupted around them, but Mary heard nothing except the beating of her own heart and William's voice. "I already said yes," she reminded him with a teary smile. "I wanted to ask you properly as myself, not as a prince in a castle, but as the man who fell at your feet in the rain," William replied. "And I wanted witnesses to see that I choose you freely, proudly, and with all my heart." Mary stepped around her stall and placed her hands in his. "Then yes, William, before all these witnesses, yes." As William rose and embraced her, the remaining market-goers broke into spontaneous applause. News would spread through York like wildfire. The prince had chosen a common flower seller as his bride. By morning, the tale would reach every corner of the kingdom, growing and embellishing with each telling, yet at its heart remaining the simple truth of two people who had found in each other something rare and precious, a love worth defying. Convention 4. That night, as Mary explained to her wide-eyed daughter that their lives were about to change forever, she felt not just happiness, but a profound sense of rightness. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them with William beside her, their lives intertwined like the stems of the blue tulips that had brought them together. Dawn broke over York with a golden radiance that seemed to promise a day blessed by heaven itself. The castle, which had stood as a symbol of power and authority for centuries, was transformed by the hands of 100 workers into a vision of unprecedented beauty. Every archway, every corridor, every alcove and chamber overflowed with flowers, not just the traditional white roses of York, but vibrant crimson blooms, delicate purple heather, and most striking of all, blue tulips that caught the light like jewels, their extraordinary color a testament to the extraordinary love they symbolized. Inside her chamber, Mary sat before a polished silver mirror, scarcely recognizing the woman who gazed back at her. 6 weeks had passed since the shocking announcement of her betrothal to Prince William. 6 weeks of whispers and speculation, of hurried preparations and diplomatic negotiations, of learning court etiquette and royal protocol. Through it all, she had maintained the quiet dignity that was her nature, winning over skeptics with her genuine warmth and impressive knowledge of healing herbs, which she had begun to teach to the court physicians. "You look beautiful, Mother," said Rose, now dressed in a gown of pale blue silk that matched her mother's eyes. The 10-year-old had adapted to their changed circumstances with the resilience of youth, though she still occasionally asked when they might return to their old home, just to visit. Mary smiled at her daughter, reaching out to adjust the circlet of small white flowers nestled in the girl's dark hair. "And you look like a proper princess," she replied. "Are you ready for your important duty today?" Rose nodded solemnly. "I'm to walk ahead of you, scattering petals on the path. Princess Helena showed me exactly how to do it." A knock at the door heralded the arrival of Helena herself, resplendent in a gown of deep green velvet that complemented her golden hair. Though fully recovered from her illness, she moved with a deliberate grace that spoke of the humility that close brush with death often instills. "It's time," Helena announced, her eyes soft with emotion as she beheld Mary in her wedding finery. "Oh, Mary, my brother will be speechless when he sees you." Mary rose, smoothing the exquisite gown that had been created for her, a masterpiece of ivory silk embroidered with tiny blue flowers, its sleeves and hem trimmed with rare silver thread that caught the light with every movement. Her dark hair was arranged in an intricate style, interwoven with pearls and small blue blossoms, and around her neck hung a pendant bearing the royal crest, a gift from King Edward himself. "I still can't believe this is happening," Mary confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sometimes I fear I'll wake and find it was all a dream." Helena took her hands, squeezing them reassuringly. "This is no dream, dear sister. This is the beginning of a new chapter for our kingdom, one written in the language of love rather than political expedience." She smiled mischievously. "Though I must say the diplomats have been working overtime to ensure that Northumbria feels adequately compensated for the change in plans." Mary's expression grew serious. "I never wished to cause complications for the realm." "The complications were well worth navigating," Helena assured her. "Northumbria has agreed to the new trade arrangements, which many believe will actually foster a stronger alliance than a marriage would have. And Lady Eleanor, between ourselves, seemed rather relieved by the turn of events. It seems her heart had already been claimed by a knight in her father's service." The sound of trumpets echoed from the castle courtyard, signaling that the guests were assembled and the ceremony would soon begin. Mary took a deep breath, steadying herself for the momentous step she was about to take. "Remember," Helena said gently, "you walk not as a commoner entering the royal family, but as a woman of worth joining her equal in love. Hold your head high, Mary. You have earned your place at my brother's side." The great hall of York Castle had never witnessed such a gathering. Nobles from across the realm sat side by side with merchants, guildmasters, and most surprisingly to many, a contingent of common folk from the marketplace, the flower sellers, bakers, and craftspeople, who had known Mary in her previous life. This unprecedented mixing of social classes had been William's idea, a bold statement that his reign would bridge the divide between nobility and commoners in ways never before attempted. King Edward, resplendent in his formal regalia, waited at the head of the hall beside William, who stood tall and commanding in royal blue velvet adorned with silver embroidery. His eyes remained fixed on the great doors, anticipation evident in every line of his body. When the doors swung open and Rose appeared, scattering blue petals with careful precision, a ripple of appreciation moved through the assembly. But when Mary herself stepped into view, a collective gasp rose from the gathered witnesses. She moved with natural grace, her gaze finding William's across the length of the hall, her smile radiant with love and certainty. William felt his breath catch in his throat. In that moment, the years of duty and constraint, the weight of royal expectations, the careful diplomatic calculations, all fell away, leaving only the pure, unalloyed joy of seeing the woman he loved walking toward him, choosing him just as he had chosen her. As Mary reached the dais, William extended his hand. She placed hers in it without hesitation, the simple gesture more binding than any formal vow. "Today," King Edward's voice rang out across the hushed assembly, "we witness not merely the union of two people, but the union of two worlds that have for too long existed apart. Prince William, heir to the throne of England, and Lady Mary Fletcher, daughter of the heroic Captain James Fletcher, stand before us as equals in love, though different in birth." The ceremony proceeded with all the solemn ritual befitting a royal wedding, yet infused with personal touches that spoke to the unique nature of this union. When it came time for the exchange of vows, William departed from the traditional script, his voice clear and unwavering as he spoke words clearly written from his heart. "I, William, take you, Mary, not as a prince claims a bride, but as a man chooses his partner in all things. I pledge to you my love, my fidelity, my respect, and my protection for all the days of our lives. You have taught me that true nobility lies in character rather than birth, in wisdom rather than wealth, in courage rather than power. With you beside me, I shall strive to be a ruler worthy of the people, all people of this realm." Tears glistened in Mary's eyes as she responded, her voice soft yet steady. "I, Mary, take you, William, not as a subject accepts a lord, but as a woman chooses the keeper of her heart. I pledge to you my love, my fidelity, my counsel and my strength for all the days of our lives. You have shown me that destiny can be rewritten by those brave enough to follow their hearts. With you beside me, I shall strive to be a princess, and one day, a queen who remembers always the lives and struggles of those from whose ranks I came." When the king pronounced them husband and wife, the hall erupted in a cheer that seemed to shake the very foundations of the castle. William drew Mary into a kiss that was at once tender and triumphant, a sealing of their unlikely journey from a rain-soaked marketplace to the throne of England. The celebration that followed was unlike any in living memory. In the castle courtyard, tables groaned under the weight of a feast open to all citizens of York. Music filled the air as nobility and commoners danced side by side, the boundaries between them dissolving in the spirit of joy that emanated from the royal couple. As evening approached, William led Mary to a quiet corner of the royal gardens, where a small, perfect bower had been created especially for them, a circle of blue tulips surrounding a simple stone bench. "A gift," William explained, "to remind us always of our beginning." Mary touched one of the tulips gently, marveling at the journey that had brought her to this moment. "From a flower stall in the rain to a garden of our own," she mused. "Life takes us on strange and wonderful paths." William took her hands in his. "In my heart, you have always been my queen. Now the world knows what I have known since that first day, that love recognizes no boundaries of birth or station." Their quiet moment was interrupted by the arrival of Rose, her face flushed with excitement from the festivities. "Mother! Prince William! Princess Helena says it's time for the lantern release." William laughed, lifting Rose easily into his arms. "Then we mustn't keep everyone waiting, must we, Princess Rose?" The child giggled at the title, still new enough to delight her. "Does this mean you're my father now?" she asked, with the directness of childhood. William's expression softened as he glanced at Mary. "If you would have me as such, it would be my greatest honor." Rose considered this solemnly before nodding. "I think my first father would approve. Mother says he was very brave, like you." "Your first father was braver than I could ever hope to be," William replied honestly, "and I shall make sure you know all about him as you grow." Together, the three of them rejoined the celebration as hundreds of paper lanterns were released into the twilight sky, each carrying a small flame, symbolizing the hope of a new beginning. Standing with William's arm around her waist and Rose's small hand in hers, Mary watched the lanterns ascend, their collective light transforming the darkening sky into a field of stars. Later that night, as the celebration continued below, Mary stood at the window of the royal chamber that was now hers, gazing out at the kingdom that had become her responsibility as well as her home. William joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Having second thoughts?" he asked softly. Mary leaned back against him, drawing strength from his solid presence. "Not about us, never about us, but the task ahead, to be worthy of this position, to make a difference. It seems overwhelming at times." William turned her gently to face him. "Today, at our wedding feast, I watched you speak with equal ease to ambassadors and kitchen maids. I saw how genuinely you listened, how thoughtfully you responded. That gift of seeing the person behind the rank is precisely what this kingdom needs." Mary smiled, drawing courage from his faith in her. "Then we shall do it together, build a bridge between worlds that have been separate for too long. Together, William agreed, sealing the promise with a kiss. In the gardens below their window, a single blue tulip had taken root among the stones of an ancient pathway, an impossible bloom in an impossible place, defying all conventional wisdom about where beauty can flourish. Like the love between a prince and a flower seller, it stood as testament to the fact that sometimes the most improbable occurrences are the ones most destined to change the world. As the blue tulips continue to bloom in the royal gardens, their impossible color a testament to love that defied convention, we're left to wonder about the walls we build between ourselves and others. William and Mary's journey reminds us that the most profound connections often come from the most unexpected places. A chance meeting in the rain, a shared glance across a marketplace, a moment of courage when all seems lost. What boundaries would you cross for love? What traditions would you challenge if your heart recognized its match in someone society deemed unsuitable? Perhaps the true measure of nobility lies not in the circumstances of our birth, but in our capacity to see beyond the artificial divisions that separate us from one another. Like the blue tulip that took root among castle stones, sometimes the most beautiful things grow in places where they were never meant to flourish. If this tale of courage, sacrifice, and love against all odds touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs a reminder that destiny can be rewritten, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that illuminate the timeless truths of the human experience. Remember, in a world that constantly tells us to stay within our assigned places, the greatest act of courage may be to follow your heart wherever and to whomever it leads.